Bienvenidos again to my show. I am so excited that you are listening to my podcast today. This is Rosie Paulson from Rosie Paulson Enterprises, and you are listening to Cafecito with Rosie on air. This program is geared for people that want to be inspired, to find their paying customers so they can build a profitable, successful, and thriving business. I bring my friends from the area that can tell you some tips and some ideas that you perhaps can use so you can be a successful business owner, or perhaps in your life to have a successful career for a corporation, or a successful community leader and mentor. So today it is my greatest honor to introduce my really good friend, PAULEE BOWIN. Hi, PAULEE. How are you?
Good. Thank you. Thanks for having me today.
Good, good, good. And you know, you and I are going through this journey together that is almost coming to an end, that we are now published authors, and we started on January of this year. Before we go into that, why don't you tell me a little bit about you? Have you lived in Tampa for a very long time? Are you a native, or did you move here? Who's PAULEE?
Well, I moved here 9.5 years ago from Kansas, where I was raised. So I had lived there my entire life. So moving to Florida was a little bit of a shock.
Really? Kansas, huh? So I bet you everybody always tells you about Dorothy, right? In Kansas?
Right. Exactly. They always say, you're not in Kansas anymore. Call me Dorothy or Toto. That happened a lot when I first moved here.
Oh, yeah. I don't think I've ever met anybody from Kansas. So this is really, really fun. Now, you also have an inspiring story, and you're very creative. And one of the things that I always follow with you in your social media platforms is your creativity on using that to inspire our younger generation. So tell me, how did that started? What kind of like generated for you to do this?
Well, it's really interesting. I'd always been a writer growing up, and an artist. And then I put all of that aside and, did the insurance career and everything. And then a couple years ago, around the time I lost my mom, a lady that I know asked me if I would illustrate a book that she had written, a book for children. So I did that, and that helped me a lot. I was really down and sad, depressed. And then I decided to write my own story originally. The first one I published, The Girl Who Sings the Alphabet Backwards. So I wrote it and illustrated it, did it all, published through Amazon, and made one of the main characters named after my mom. So that's how it started. And then I kept going. I have all these ideas for books. And then last year I met our wonderful publishers, Now Publishing, that we work with. Mm-hmm. And gave them the idea that I had for the next book, which is called Mermaid Logic. Then we decided to create a women's empowerment book to go along with it. So I'm actually launching, I should say, 2 books on November 19th at the Tampa Club. So kind of excited. Yes.
Good, good. So you already wrote 1 book, and this is your second book. So that first book, tell me a little bit about that. What is it based on, and why did you decide to write it?
I wrote a book. I wanted to create a book with a character that's an owl, because that was my mom's favorite thing is owls. She collected them. So I made a story about a little girl who visits the Gulf of Mexico and meets an owl and a tree and a fountain that are all magical and talk, and she ends up saving some sea turtles at the end of the book with the help of some dolphins. And her little quirk is she sings the alphabet backwards, which I can say it backwards. I don't really sing very well, but that's how that started. And then that book became Book of the Month in Boca Raton because it actually helped people that are dyslexic, I guess, which is pretty cool because dyslexia is a serious thing people deal with, and And doing the alphabet backwards, I guess, spoke to some of those people, which was nice.
Yeah, and that inspired them to be better. When you connect with others, because sometimes having the isolation, thinking that you're the only one that has the certain problem or the certain challenge, then you cannot find hope, right? But by you sharing your story and by you sharing your experiences, you bring somebody else ideas that they thought, oh my God, I'm the only one. And you realize, no, you're not. And we are in this together and we can overcome it together, right?
Absolutely, yes. And, we need to not judge people for their differences, but rather embrace them. And, not to sound cliche, but seriously, there's too much dislike and discontent for others that are different than us or look at things differently. Mm-hmm. And I said on my radio show last week that the hatred needs to stop. We need to really quit with the intolerance and the hatred towards others.
Yeah, I think I was talking about this to somebody. My kids when they were little, so Tabitha is 29, Stephen is 25. But when they were little, I remember Tabitha coming over from school and saying, I hate this and I hate that. And to me, hate is a very strong word because it's about your character. So I told my kids, you don't use the word hate. You do disliked or I don't approve, but don't use the word hate because it's very strong. But that became kind of like the norm culturally. And look where we are now as a society, because it's just like you said, we need to stop because it's just becoming where our humanity is being lost because hate takes over that. But we'll get there. We'll get there.
It certainly does take over. We weren't allowed to use the word hate in our household either growing up. And I think that that's a wonderful thing is to, teach your children to not use that word because in a lot of ways it's like speaking death. I mean, hatred is such a strong, dark thing and wishing death is never good. There's too much of that these days.
Yes. And I say that's like kind of like a very, and I always talk about my Christianity and my spiritual upbringing. But to me, that hate is very insidious. It's a spirit that starts very, very insidious, like there's nothing happening. But by the time you realize it's so far that you have lost, that you walk so far away that sometimes to turn back is very difficult. But if you cut it on time, if you catch it on time and you own it and take responsibility for it, you can change yourself. You can change your community and you can change the outcome of many things that they are to come. So let's stay united as a human race. And like you said, stop judging each other and just love on each other for who we are, right? Because we are all unique.
That's right.
Thank you. So now I was talking to some people also about Tampa being different. I know they want to put Florida, or Tampa in the same category as everybody else in Florida, all the big cities like Miami, Orlando. But Tampa is unique. And you coming from another state or another city, what do you think?
I think Tampa is definitely different than Miami, Orlando. I visited some great places. San Antonio, Texas is an excellent place, in my opinion. And Tampa has a little bit more of a feel of that, which, in my opinion, is a little bit more down to earth than, Miami or Orlando, for instance. Does that make sense? It's like a tighter knit community somehow, even though there's so many people. I feel like it's just a little different.
Right. And it's really who you know. So you get to know people in a intimate, not in a setting, in an intimate, but more of a knowing face-to-face basis. So yes, you do have a larger amount of people, but then you connect with some and those really become your friends. And usually you have business that you guys do together. And then it's just, I call it long-lasting relationships that will turn into into either your best sale force or a paying customer. But it's building that relationship that goes a long way. It doesn't happen overnight, but the more you build on it, you'll get a lot of people that will like you, trust you, and do business with you because they know you.
Right. It does take time here in my experience. It's not quite like the Midwest where, you move into a new home, for instance, and the neighbors are over, bringing you cookies, asking how you're doing. And so that's a little different here. It's not quite that friendly or open like the Midwest is, but it's certainly nicer here than, like I said, nicer than Miami or Orlando, in my opinion.
Yes. So I know sometimes I always ask people, I tend to go back. I have a couple of favorite places that I go back to in Tampa because they're just unique and I love them. Have you found your favorite place here in the Tampa Bay area yet?
Oh gosh, Rosie, do you mean strictly in Tampa on that side, or over here
in the area, wherever you can go back to when you think, okay, I just really need to relax, forget about everything, and just find myself? Even if it's not in the Tampa Bay area, but nearby, where do you go?
Actually, the beach is my favorite place.
And why? What do you feel when you're in the beach?
Oh gosh, it feels very cleansing, and I love the feel of the salt water, and something about it is inspiring for me, and it recharges me, and I love looking for seashells. So I feel at home near the water, which is funny because of my affinity for mermaids anyway, and dolphins. So I think, I love the beach. Yep.
Yeah. So when was the first when was the first time that you saw a dolphin, and what did that make you feel?
Oh, that made me feel so much joy, and I never get tired of it. I know like some people that are local, it's kind of old news to them, but I love it. I love it every time. And it's 9.5 years later. The first time I saw one was actually on a visit here. I came to Florida to visit when I still lived in Kansas, and I was so excited because I was on a little boat that dolphins followed, and they were jumping up and down, and I got video, and it made me happy.
It's one of those things that is a bucket thing to do here, and bucket list to do here in Florida is to have one of those dolphin tours and see it. And it's just majestic because I don't know, but I still get goosebumps every time I see them because it's just unique, right?
Right. They're amazing creatures. The more I learn about them, the more I love them, and I loved them before. So there's so much to learn. I mean, in general, about that.
Yeah. And so tell me a little bit, you are right now working on your second book, and that's how we're doing it together. So tell me a little bit about what inspired you to write the second book. What's the story behind it? And why would people like to read it?
Well, the story behind this one is it started as Mermaid Logic, and what I wanted to do is make a book of all original quotes that either I thought of or a couple that my mom used to say, and then I drew an illustration that would go with it. So it's like a mermaid telling you the advice, for instance, like some days you have to make your own sunshine. My mom always said that when I was a kid, and so I drew a mermaid, accordingly, and that was my whole thing. I just wanted a book full of quotes, and they were quotes from mermaids. Well, then a good friend of mine said that actually Spirit led her to offer her help to me. So I had drawn all these illustrations, and she offered to take them all in and add graphic design to it, which enhanced it. Before you knew it, we were naming all the mermaids, and it morphed it. It turned into a really neat project. So we had all of this pretty much done, and then I met somebody through an RGA meeting that referred me to Lisa. And so then I met Lisa. This was last December. And so I showed them my artwork for the book, my illustrations, my idea. And so that day, it was the week before Christmas, they told me, hey, we love your idea.